Hello there, I'm Kim Walsh Phillips, and I'm a self-made millionaire entrepreneur and best-selling author of multiple business books with no business degree, but a lot of hustle and heart. A lot of the same thing I imagine that you have right now. So it's my absolute honor and privilege to bring you this message, all about how to thrive in times such as this. Well, it first starts with a quote my friend Rich Sheffrin has been quoted as saying, which is, "These times will separate the meek from the bold." The meek from the bold. What does that mean? Well, there are times like this that people will say, I couldn't because, this didn't happen because, and they will blame the circumstances around them. But then there are those of us who don't see what's currently happening as happening to us, but happening, and seek opportunities in spite of that. Truly, in times such as this, the meek and the bold will separate. Those that will claim it as the reason for their lack of dreams coming true, the reason for them not moving forward, or it was the reason to propel them forward. So let's talk about it. If you're one of the people who want to propel yourself, continue to thrive and strive, how can we make that happen? Well, there's a few things. First of all, you have evidence that it's possible. Evidence. Why? How do you have evidence that it's possible? Well, just think about the last several weeks. All that you have accomplished with no roadmap, no guidebook, no evidence or history of the past. You just kept moving forward. You were not born knowing how to navigate, knowing how to pivot, but yet you did. Anything that you figured out that was brand new showed that you can do great things. You can figure out new things. And so I want you to take 10 minutes, pen and paper in hand. Do not allow yourself to lift that pen from the paper until you are done with this exercise. But go ahead and make a list of all the things you did for the first time in the last 8 weeks. All the things that you figured out. All the ways that you found to prosper, to have joy, to bring others joy, to bring care, to have fun that you never knew you could do. Make a list. Write them down, big and bold. And with each one, celebrate all that you have done. And then I want you to take that list and put it somewhere visible as a constant reminder of all that you can accomplish, all that you are capable of, and all that your past has shown you you can do. This will be a constant reminder, anything new you go after, that you can do big and amazing thing. And then as you're doing it, you're going to start to get a little worried. Like, what is this going to lead to next? You're going to start thinking about, what will people think of you? Like, what if someone saw this list? And what if someone starts judging the things that I did? What if the things I'm doing aren't as great or as important as others? What if people think I'm not qualified to be doing these things? Well, we take a pause. We recognize those feelings are normal, and then we keep moving forward anyway, because we recognize our ego cannot be greater than our mission. Our ego can't be greater than our mission. We need to be able to move forward because what we have planned to do, what we were created to do, is greater than what anyone will ever think of you, right? People who might judge you were not who you were created for. One of my fabulous coaching clients, he goes by Ski, will say he enters any situation knowing that 50% of the people he presents to will not like him. Let's just take that off the top, because that's not who we were created for. You might not be everybody's cup of tea, but guess what? Even if you were to pour your pot in cups that you were created for all day long, you wouldn't have enough time in your lifetime to reach them. So don't worry about the people that you weren't created for. Focus on those that you are and let go of that ego, because it's not as important as your mission. Now, when you continue to move forward, it doesn't mean that you're not scared. It doesn't mean that you don't have fear. In fact, when you're courageous, that means you're moving forward in spite of the fear that you have. In spite of the fear that you have. So whatever that big goal is, I want you to write it out boldly. Something you've been driven to do, something you want to accomplish, the next thing you want to get done. Write it out, that I will, write the statement. What will you do? I will, write the statement. Maybe it's write that book, start that business, ask that person out. Whatever it is, you're going to write it boldly, and you're going to put it right above that list, that things you've already done. So when you look at it, if you have that instant moment of fear, you're going to look immediately below it to the list of what you've already accomplished as a constant reminder that you can do great things. Then the next thing I want you to do is schedule. You're going to schedule to get it done. So that big thing you just wrote down, that dream that you have, brain dump a list of all the tasks you need to do in order to accomplish it. Okay? Whatever that might be, from start to finish. Because as soon as we start breaking down those big goals, they become so much more accomplishable. We don't have that list sticking in our head, on our shoulders, like, oh, it just feels overwhelming. It's no longer overwhelming. It's a series of tasks, and you're going to then put those tasks into your schedule. Big things can only get done when we schedule them. Right? It's not like, oh, I hope it gets done. I'm going to make sure it gets done. It's very similar to when you're trying to, let's say, save for a house or buy a car or make sure that you have more money in your bank account than you're spending. We actually have to track the numbers, right? We need to know how much is in there, how much we are spending, and balance that. Well, the same thing is about your time. We could either keep hoping our big dreams come true, or we can make them happen by putting them into our schedule. So you're going to create that list of tasks, and then you're going to go into your schedule and put them in. I prefer to use something called a power hour. This is the first hour that I work every day. I will put in those big projects I'm trying to accomplish, those things that necessarily aren't on fire, but they're important. And I will give myself 30 minutes of that hour every single day to work on those projects. It's how I've gotten the books that I've written. It's how I've gotten new courses out. It's how I've launched new business opportunities, spending that time every single day. So whether you want to do 10 minutes a day, 30 minutes, 2 hours, it's fine. You're just going to pick a set time in your day every single day to schedule those tasks. Then you're going to get others involved. Now, why would you do that? Well, because this is where you can leverage success. There are people who have accomplished the thing you want to accomplish, who have already done it. If you copy their blueprint, you're going to get so much farther, so much faster. Now, this doesn't mean you're going to go posting on social media the first day you decide to do something. That's a terrible idea. Actually, science has shown when you post something, before you've actually done anything for it, we get this dose of dopamine, which means we don't have to do anything else. Like, we've already rewarded ourselves because we're just telling people our plan without any risk of doing it. And then the whole world's like, yay, you're awesome, you have big plans. Bad idea. Don't do that. Instead, seek people who have accomplished the thing you're trying to accomplish. Find out how they did it, and follow their blueprint. It could be a course you're going to buy, mentoring you're going to pay for, a dinner you're going to invite someone to. It doesn't matter. Follow their blueprint. Maybe they have a book, they have a course, they have an event. Do that as a way to follow them to make sure that happens. Then you're going to create a deadline. Get this on there. A deadline and celebration. So this is this big thing you want to accomplish. You're going to set a date you're going to get it done by and a way and method of celebrating it. This is creating a time specificity on a goal, which is so important to ensure that it gets done. And then when it comes to your celebration, I want you to invite someone else to do it with you. Just one person. Again, we're not posting on all social media here. We're inviting one person. So let me give you an example. When I first was launching my first digital course, I invited my husband that we were going to go out to dinner at this great tasting restaurant that we love, and it requires a reservation and a credit card to reserve it. So now I had a deadline, I had accountability, and I put some money on the table. That's a great way to do it. A reservation at a hotel that's non-refundable, a golfing trip, a spa date, even just a hike that you invite someone to. Set a deadline of when you're going to accomplish it. Invite someone else so you have that accountability, and give your subconscious brain to know it's going to get a reward at the end of it. It'll make you much more likely to stay on task. Then it is time to tell others about it. Now, not yet. I want you to wait at least until you are 50% done with the project and or 1 week out of completing it. Whichever way, maybe it's something quick and you're going to get it completely done. You want to make sure you have a lot of skin in the game before you tell others. But then it's time. Because then you can be accountable. You can have a group of people cheering you on, celebrating you, and supporting you. I've done this with each of my book projects. Before I've written a book, about 50% done with the book, I'll start sharing with my audience what is happening, what's the book about, what's the next steps and stages, so they start rooting for this project before I complete it. It's a great way to get them involved, but also not share it too early that it never comes true in the first place. And the final piece of all of this is, whenever those doubts come up, whenever those fears or concerns, remember, you, my friend, are enough. You were created on purpose with a purpose, and that was to do amazing and great things. This is only the beginning. The last few weeks have shown you how much you can accomplish, and that was just the start. Right now, right in this moment, you have a brand new opportunity to do incredible things, and I can't wait to be cheering with you on. I'd love to connect with you. Visit me on my website at kimwalshphillips.com. That's KIMWALSHPHILLIPS.com. I love to connect with my folks there, and I would love to meet you personally. Congratulations on all your success, and I can't wait to see what's next for you.
Hi, you're listening to Everyday Peace with Dr. Dravon James, and I want to come on here today to give you some hope and to remind you of just who you are and just how amazing you are. We are living right now during some very interesting times, to say the least. There's a lot of pain, not only in our country, but throughout the world. There's a lot of uncertainty because of violence, and there's a lot of uncertainty because of the pandemic. And people are experiencing heightened sense of just anxiety, which is to be expected, right? These human bodies, our egos, really rely on some semblance of a routine, and we are definitely not in our routine. That being said, now is not the time to be paralyzed with fear or to be fueled with anger. Now is the time to become quietly inquisitive. Curiosity matched with quiet. Why? What happens when you're quiet and you're inquisitive? And I don't mean quiet like stop talking. I mean spending some time in the silence. Whether it's 5, 10, 20, 30 minutes a day, it doesn't matter. The quantity of time, not as important as the practice, as the routine of the practice. And what happens when you just spend this time in silence, just sitting, letting your mind relax and take a break, putting yourself back into the body, becoming attached to your true feelings without judgment, shame, or condemnation. What you're going to find in the silence are answers. Answers. The answers are in the silence. And guess what? I'm going to tell you something that you already intuitively know. The answer is wrapped up in love. It's loving to give your mind a break, to sit in the silence. So that is tip number 1. Tip number 2 is become curious. Just become curious about everything. This uncertain time. Especially spend time becoming curious about how to find love in the eyes of everyone. Sad eyes, angry eyes, jaded eyes. Find love in the eyes of everyone. Find love in your own eyes. Reconnect to that love. We're looking for answers. We're in uncertain times, right? The ego feels better. We feel better, right? There's nothing wrong with having answers, right? So this is how we're going to get to them. We're going to connect in the silence. Allows us to connect to our heartbeat. That rhythm that unites all humanity. Did you know that? The heartbeat is global. That's the beat. That's the rhythm to which we all move. We all move in our own way, but that's the rhythm that connects all of us. In the silence, becoming silently inquisitive will have the impact of lessening our fears, reconnecting us with one another, reconnecting us with ourselves. I am not saying that we're going to sit by and just let injustice rage and all of that. No, we're not. We're going to respond, however, in ways that motivate and move us in love. Right? First, love for ourselves, love for others, love for our country. Right? We're going to move in love. We'll be guided, organically guided to our next right action when we take time to love on ourselves in the silence with curiosity. I'm Dr. Dravon James. This is Everyday Peace with Dr. Dravon James. I am super excited to call you an everyday peacemaker. Peace meaning wholeness, completeness, nothing missing, nothing broken, totality. That's who you are. That's the truth of who you are. There's so much power in that. And I just want to say, I love this definition of peace. Wholeness, completeness, nothing missing, totality. That means if something is happening in your world, in your environment right now, it can happen. It's okay for it to happen, and you still exist as peace. You are creating the new world. That's how amazing you are. That's how powerful you are. You're creating the new world even in light of what's happening. I'm glad to share this experience with you. This is Everyday Peace with Dr. Dravon James. I absolutely love you. You're amazing.
Hello, this is Dr. Karen Wilson Starks, President and CEO of Trans Leadership Incorporated and the host of the Voice of Leadership podcast. And I am your good news reporter. Today, we're going all the way around the globe to Kenya in East Africa, and we are celebrating 9-year-old Stephen Wamukota. And we're celebrating 9-year-old Stephen because he actually invented a touchless hand washing station for the purpose of preventing the spread of the coronavirus. And Stephen's inspiration came when he was watching the news on television and he learned of ways to avoid getting and spreading the coronavirus. So he found some wood at home that his father James had set aside to actually build some window frames. And Stephen got to work and he created his touchless hand washing station. So by the time his father got home from work, he saw what his son had created and was quite amazed. The way it works with foot pedals. So one foot pedal actually controls the water container, which is a large plastic container, and it tips the water out. And the other foot pedal controls actually the hand sanitizer. So he has shared his prototype on Facebook, and he's created a second water station, and he believes that this invention is needed around the globe because there are many places that are affected by the coronavirus. So when funds are available, he also hopes to make one out of metal. Because of his community service, his caring for other people, Stephen also received a presidential medal, and this is the Presidential Order of Service, the Uzalendo Patriotic Award from the President of Kenya. Stephen desires to be an engineer and one day to build factories. So the governor of his county in Kenya has also promised him a scholarship to college when he's old enough to go to college. So here's what I want all of us to take notice of. Anyone can be a force for good and can care about other people. And today, I'm thanking Stephen Wamukota for being our inspiration for today's good news. So I'm Dr. Karen Wilson Starks, President and CEO of Trans Leadership Incorporated, the host of the Voice of Leadership podcast, and your good news reporter on Raven International TV Network.
Do you know how unique you are, and that God speaks to you in individual ways? As an individual, you receive and respond to these messages differently from your friends and family. God will use various approaches to call you for a specific purpose. He may give you more than one calling and may call you at different ages and stages in life. You have a lot in common with Bible characters. Any one of the following ways could be the method God has planned to get your attention. Which one of these ways have you heard God? Are you the type that needs to hear God's calling directly? In other words, are you the type that doesn't understand the language of hint? This was exactly how God called Samuel. Samuel's mother had prayed to have a son and promised to dedicate him to God's service. So instead of living with his mother, he lived with the priest Eli. Now, even before Samuel was born, God had a purpose for him. One night when Samuel was a young boy, resting in his bed, he heard his name called. He got up and ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." And Eli said, "I didn't call you, go back to bed." Well, this happened 2 more times before Eli realized it was God who was calling him. He told Samuel that the next time he heard his name being called, to say, "Speak, Lord, I'm listening." Well, God did call his name again, and this time Samuel responded. That's about as direct as it gets. Now, you may not hear God's voice out loud, but instead are provided with situations where it is so obvious He is calling you. And you can say the same thing. "Speak, Lord, I'm listening." Maybe you don't recognize that you are being called because it isn't direct. But there is a divine plan in place, and God has been preparing you for it all along. This is what happened to the beautiful young Esther. Her cousin Mordecai was raising her, and one day, while she was playing in the streets, the king of Persia had his men bring many young girls to the palace to participate in a beauty contest. Well, she won and became his queen. In turn, her good character saved the Jewish people from being destroyed. Now, there's a lot more to this story, and you can read it in the Bible. A whole book is named after her. The reason I mentioned Esther was because she didn't know until a crisis occurred that she would be called to a very important mission. It came through the words of her cousin, "If you remain silent at this time, you and your father's family will perish." And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Then she risked her life by asking for a personal meeting with the king. He agreed, and she corrected misinformation, which saved the Jewish people. Is there anything going on in your life that you have been put into a position for such a time as this? Do you need a sign? I have a friend who sees everything in her experience as a sign from God. She connects all the dots or situations happening and gives gratitude to God for all these divine connections. What signs do you need in order to be certain God has called you? Moses was given a very clear sign. A burning bush that didn't burn. Not only that, but he also heard from God directly. He witnessed many signs of God's calling. He needed a lot of convincing because he didn't think he was the right choice. Do you need many signs before you are convinced that God has chosen you to fill an important position or mission? Well, maybe you don't realize that there is something better for you, but God wants to take you out of your current situation into an adventure where you get to discover your relationship with God. Rahab was living in Jericho, a city not known for their moral conduct. She had heard about these Israelite people and their God who performed many miracles. She was impressed and desired a more spiritual life, but didn't really know it. She had hid some Israelite men to protect them from being captured. These men conquered the city and saved her and her family. She joined the Israelite community, got married, and one of her descendants was King David. So no matter what is going on in your life right now, God can call you into serving Him in unexpected ways. He can remove you from a bad situation and bring you into an amazing life. You might have the perfect job and aren't even thinking about changing it, but your calling might come out of necessity. Some of my friends have been called to care for an aging parent or to raise a grandchild. Nehemiah was a very important servant in the king's palace. He was a cupbearer and kept the king from being harmed. The king trusted him and respected him. When Nehemiah heard that the walls of Jerusalem were destroyed, he was distraught. The king noticed his less than sunny disposition and gave him permission to go repair the walls. This was a calling out of necessity, and all that was necessary was provided for Nehemiah's journey. The king provided an escort and wrote letters to governors of the town through which Nehemiah would pass, and they gave him supplies. The king even commissioned Nehemiah to act as governor of Jerusalem. Have you been called out of necessity? You can be certain then that all your needs will be met. Lastly, are you called to use your circumstances to bless others? Lydia is mentioned briefly in the Acts book, the book of Acts. Her calling to hospitality was long-lasting. She sold purple cloth, which was very difficult to make and expensive to purchase. But this gave her great wealth and a home large enough to host Paul and other followers of Jesus as they went on their mission trips. She didn't give up her current work, but was called to add another one. Her job supported her ministry. Are you working in a position that creates enough income to allow you to be part of a ministry or mission? These are just a few ways God called people to serve Him. Like these Bible characters, it doesn't matter how old you are. Samuel was a boy, and Moses could have easily retired. It doesn't matter whether you have a great job already or one you want to leave. Lydia didn't give up her job. She was called to use her resources to help others. Rahab was glad to give up her profession. And Esther didn't have a choice of where she was, but she did have a choice in how she responded to it. You are truly blessed by God with qualities and characteristics that make you uniquely called to do something that will make a positive impact in many lives.
Hi, I'm Cathy Sexton, Productivity and Profit Specialist for Small Business. With everything that is going on in the world today I wanted to talk about two things: the power of our mind and some productivity. I am one of the last people to say life is easy, because it is not. For the most part, there is very little we have control over. I believe we only have control over 5 things in life: our time, our money, energy, our thoughts, and behaviors. Our thoughts can propel us forward, or they can stop us in our tracks without even realizing what's going on. Our life is made up of years, weeks, days, hours, minutes, and seconds, all based on how we think and how we act. 90% of our decisions are made subconsciously. The problem is, it doesn't matter if they're positive or negative thoughts. Did you know that we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts go through our head every single day? And only 5% of those are new thoughts. So what does that mean? So that means we are constantly thinking the same thoughts over and over and over again. With that in mind, what we think about has a direct effect on our lives. Our thoughts rule our actions. It's worth taking notice of our thoughts, our beliefs, and the decisions we make. That's the first step in creating positive decisions, by recognizing the thought patterns and start to change them. When we constantly think negative thoughts, we attract negative patterns in our life. And when we think positive, we attract positive things in our life. And that's why it's so important to make sure the majority of those 60 to 70 thoughts we think of every day are positive. Our goals and dreams are what keeps life interesting and gives us motivation to change what we have now into what it can be in the future. The more positivity that we place in our lives, the faster these goals and dreams can be realized. I believe this pandemic has given us an opportunity to stop and to catch our breath and change the pace of our lives we live. We can choose to race through life, or we can stop and smell the roses, as the old saying goes. It's important to be positive through these changing times, as well as embrace the fact that we are all in this together, and we can be stronger together. We can choose to have a stronger family life, a stronger immune system, simpler paced lives. Now, don't get me wrong. I realize that it's not all been good. Some of us have lost family members. We've lost jobs. The key here is to understand and acknowledge the things that we cannot change or we have no control over, and focus on the living life to the fullest in the situations for the things that we do have control over. So let's just jump things a little bit and go over to productivity. So when it comes to productivity, I want you to start thinking big, but I want you to act small. I'm going to say that again. I want you to think big, but I want you to act small. When I say act small, it's about breaking everything down into a small or even tiny steps. far too many of us don't take small enough steps. We want to rush into the end to reach the result, and our society has conditioned us to have and want instant results. But what I have learned is that brilliance does not come from the results. Even the results are nice and we feel good about reaching them. The brilliance comes from the lessons we learn along the way as we create or go through the process. Whatever goal or dream you're working on, take the time to stop and reveal the process and the lessons you're learning along the way. You know, productivity isn't everything in life, but it affects everything. It's the ROI, return on your investment, of our time, our energy, and our money. So let's take a look at what I call the DNA of productivity. It's about decisions, next, action. Again, DNA, decisions, next, action. Productivity doesn't happen until we make a decision and then we take the next step and then action into making it happen. A lot of times we get hung up on just making a decision. Should I not? Should I do it now? Should I do it later? So this is what I say. If it's not a definite yes, then maybe it's a no for now. It can be a yes later. Don't waste time waffling back and forth, wasted time and energy. This can cause stress. Sometimes we don't know what our next action should be. Example, if you're a business owner, you might want to work on a budget or your family budget. Or maybe I need to work on my website. Those are end results. You need to narrow it down into your next action. Review last year's budget or collect pictures for my homepage of my website. Think task, not end results. So I challenge you to take a look at your to-do list and see if your items on your to-do list are results, or are they really the tasks that are going to reach the results? If they are results, then make sure you're writing down the next action you need to take. So let's recap a little bit. Life is not always easy, but we do have control over our time, our energy, our money, and our thoughts, positive or negative, and we have the choice to choose. And then, of course, our behaviors / actions. And the good news is that we get to choose to change our thoughts at any point in time. Embrace where we are and take advantage of the time to reconnect with family and this slower pace life. Think big, but act small and learn from the lessons in the process of change. This is Cathy Sexton, the productivity experts for productivity and profit for you personally and your business.
Ability to help business professionals brand their brilliance. She's a best-selling author, a tech CEO, branding expert, and market domination strategist. Sounds exciting. So she's also, believe it or not, she's ranked number 8 in the world among top 30 branding gurus. So you're going to hear a lot, and I've heard her speak. She's amazing. You're going to love her. From high school dropout to PhD student and serialpreneur, Lethia knows what it takes to be a game changer. She's a little geeky, magnetically motivating, and oozing brilliant business strategies. And she will challenge you as our audience today to get in the game, because game changers, not spectators, win championships. Please welcome Lethia Owens.
What if you could achieve your most audacious goal faster? You can, and I'm going to show you how today. In 2009, Google realized they had a problem. They had a great new product called Gmail, but it wasn't making them any money. So they decided to do a series of experiments where they changed the color of their web links to a slightly greener shade of blue, just to see if they could get more click-throughs. Well, that one little change, a change so small that people could hardly even notice, led to an extra $200 million a year in revenue. That is the power of 1%. As a branding strategist, I've had the opportunity to work with businesses all over the world. And one of the things that really blesses me is that I get to learn from them. You see, one of the things I've learned is that those who win have a mindset of a game changer. A mindset that never quits. A mindset that doesn't settle for the status quo. But a mindset that is always seeking to be just a little bit better. And that mindset makes all the difference. I used to think that successful people had this secret DNA that gave them the power to push forward and to win. But I've come to realize that it's not just the Serena Williams and the Steve Jobs of the world that have the opportunity to shape the whole human race. It's something that each and every one of us, we get to do. And one of the things that inspires me the most about the power of 1% is the opportunity to succeed regardless of where you start. You see, I didn't have a promising start. By the age of 15, I was both a high school dropout and a teen mom. And words can't express how it feels to have people prejudge you and immediately dismiss you because of who they think you are. Like my homeroom teacher, Mr. Wilder. You see, when I told Mr. Wilder that I was dropping out of high school, he looked at me and he said, I wouldn't be surprised if you ended up on welfare. Or ended up using drugs or even selling them. And I thought to myself, how could Mr. Wilder say those things about me? Like, what made him think that? I didn't understand. But I quit school, and I had my daughter, and my mother did something that absolutely blew my mind. She quit her job and got a job at night as a security guard so that she could stay at home during the day with my daughter. Well, the next semester, I went back to school. And this time I was serious, because previously I was a C or D student, but then I became a straight A student. Well, I had this pretty lucrative side hustle in high school. I sold blow pop lollipops from my locker, and that's how I provided for my daughter, right? And here's the reality, like Mr. Wilder was right, that someday I would be selling blow. Just like the kind that he thought, right? But you know what? At the beginning of my junior year, my boyfriend, he said, you need to start preparing to take the SAT. And I said, the SAT? I'm not going to take the SAT because I'm not going to college. I'm going to become a cosmetologist. So every time I asked him, hey, can we go to the movies? Or can we go out to eat? He would say yes, after you study for the SAT. He even had me create a cassette tape. You remember those things, right? A cassette tape, and he had me record hundreds of Greek and Latin root words, prefixes, and suffixes. So every day on the school bus for over a year, while my friends were listening to New Edition and John Cougar Mellencamp, I was listening to sub means under. I thought my boyfriend was from another planet. But I was grateful and so appreciative that he was persistent in pushing me. and really challenging me to learn to become just a little bit better every day. Do you have someone in your life like that? Yeah. Pushing me to become just a little bit better every day. And you know what? I'm no dumb chick. So I married that handsome hunk of chocolate. And we've been married for over 32 years. So I love the fact that, Andre, who's my husband, has really poured into me, and it's just been a beautiful thing. So, in preparing for the SAT, there was a time when he said, you got to take the SAT, and I started studying and everything, but there was a time when I had to register, and my parents couldn't afford it, so he paid for it, right? And when I got ready to take the test, I just chose the schools. You have to send your scores to schools or whatever. I chose the schools that I already knew. Harvard. Yale. Vanderbilt. Albany State, right? Well, 6 weeks later, I get a tap on the shoulder from my teacher. She whispers in my ear and says, "The principal would like to see you." That was the longest walk ever. Because, remember I had a blow pop smuggling operation, right? And I've already been caught and warned about that, right? And I'm thinking to myself, who would have snitched on me? So I get to the principal's office and I slowly open up the door. And there is Mrs. Lowe, standing at her desk. She's standing. This is serious. And then I see that there's a gentleman in the room. And I'm like, really? Reinforcements? For some blow pops? And before I could properly introduce myself, the gentleman said, "Lethia, I have a near perfect SAT score. What's up with that?" Relieved this wasn't about blow pops, I said, "Oh, that's simple. I'm not going to college. I'm going to become a cosmetologist." Confused with my response, he said, "Wait a minute. What if we give you a full ride?" And I said, "Ride where?" Like, I'm not getting in the car with this man. I don't know that. I wish you could have seen the look on his face when he said, "We're going to give you a full ride scholarship to go to college, which means we pay for everything." And I said, "Oh, I can do that, sign me up." And I went on to get a computer science and math degree. I earned my master's in leadership. I have an honorary doctorate in divinity. I'm working on my PhD in Christian entrepreneurship right now. I founded a technology and entrepreneurship program for young high school girls. Now, I'm not giving you this long list of accomplishments to impress you, by no means. You see, it goes back to the power of 1%. Because none of those accomplishments could have been possible had my boyfriend not taught me how to become just a little bit better every day. Right? And so when we understand the power of 1%, and we realize that we have the ability to shape the lives of others and give ourselves to the world, all of a sudden it starts to change things, right? Well, I've seen success, and I know what it feels like and what it's like to come up from nothing and to make something of yourself, one day at a time, week by week. And as Al Pacino told me, inch by inch. He said, "Lethia, you have to learn that life is a game of inches, and you have to fight for that inch. Because at the end, when you add up all of those inches, you're going to realize that it could mean the difference between winning and losing." Well, actually, that was his speech in the locker room from a movie Any Given Sunday, but I feel like he was talking just to me. And as I think about, Al Pacino and just what I learned, I realized again that we have the opportunity to use our 1% to get better every day so that we can give it to the world. Now, here's what we often hear about success. Work hard, harder than the next guy. Or perhaps you've heard, work smarter, not harder. Well, just like all cliches, there is some truth here. Because if you work hard enough, eventually you will move things. And if you work smarter, you might just get there faster. But my question is that the best way to make a difference? You see, you may get the job done, but are you getting better? So in this whole idea of really shaping who we are and applying this 1%, I realized I wanted to get better. So I would like to suggest that you use a different strategy for development. This strategy will give you a more reliable and exponentially greater chance of being successful. And this strategy is to improve by 1% each day. Take all of your hard work and try to move the needle by 1 notch. Yes, I know, 1 is a tiny number. It's a tiny number. And we often think that we can't do much with 1 minute, 1 seed, $1. Well, I beg to differ. And actually, I'm not the only one who believes this. You see, I'm friends with a carpenter who told his disciples that if they would just have the faith of 1 mustard seed, whole mountains would move. And on its own, 1 is barely tangible, right? It's barely a blip on an annual report. But aggregated over time, it means everything. Absolutely everything. And so think about the power of 1% and what you could do with it in your life, So when we think about the opportunity and what we're going to do with it, what are your friends saying to you? Well, with this power of 1%, I'd like to just share with you the reality that when we think about let's look at compounded interest. Compounded interest. How many of you know about compounded interest, right? Well, the power of 1% is like compounding improvements. You're compounding the improvements in the areas where you want to grow the most. And that's absolutely amazing. Okay? Well, when we look at the math, I want you to know that if you make a decision to do what I'm saying, right? And every day you decide that you're going to improve by 1%, and you do that every day for 365 days, do you know that at the end of the year, you will have improved by a whopping 37%? What if your marriage were 37% better? What if your career were 37% better? What if your health were 37% better? It can be, and it all starts with the power of 1%. I'm going to give you an example, because I know that examples kind of like bring things home, right? So, in over 76 years of competing in the Tour de France, the British cycling team achieved not 1, not 5, but 0 wins. And it wasn't until their coach, Sir David Brailsford, used the power of 1% to help his team, right? They didn't have any success. And what he did was he aggregated these improvements. The first thing that he did is he reduced the wheel weight. He then also shaved millimeters off of the seat. He even changed their diet. And in 2012, a British cyclist won the Tour de France. His teammate came in 2nd place. And the whole team took home 8 gold medals in the London Olympic Games that same year. When you recognize and acknowledge what the power of 1% can do for you, you begin to see opportunities for change and growth everywhere in your life. I opportunity to meet this wonderful guy named Chris Robinson. And when I met Chris about 6 years ago, he had lost almost everything. His $1 million company had just imploded. He had to sell his home for a loss that's more than many of our homes even cost. And he and his family had to move in to his parents' home. Well, I had the wonderful opportunity to coach Chris. And we were at lunch one day. And I shared the power of 1% with him. And I told him how it had already impacted my life and how valuable it was to my personal growth. This just added fuel to his fire. Well, I got a chance to run into Chris like a few weeks ago. And I could still see the power of 1% operating in his life. He was excited and he told me, he says, Lethia, just 90 days ago, I decided that I wanted to start investing in multifamily properties. And I've already read 7 books. I've completed 1 self-study program. My family and I, we've driven over 450 miles around St. Louis trying to find the perfect property. And I'm only 20 days away from closing my first deal. You probably can imagine that today Chris is far more successful spiritually, mentally, and financially than he was when I met him. Before he even lost it all, he's more successful now than that. You see, Chris is a game changer because he understands and applies the power of 1%. Now, I wish I could tell you that it was going to be easy to actually make these changes, because sometimes they're not. Even though it's 1%, it's not always easy. Because sometimes you'll hit barriers and obstacles that will stop you before you even get started. And then sometimes the people you trust to help you will become your biggest barrier. I was sitting at work one day, and I decided to, just really sit back and reflect on my life. And I had the most intriguing thought. I said, I should go back and say hi to Mr. Wilder. So I drove 843 miles all the way back to Albany, Georgia. And when I got back to the high school, I found out Mr. Wilder was no longer there. But you know what I did, right? I went to that room 223, and I stood at that very spot where some 20 years earlier, Mr. Wilder sought to erroneously forecast my future. And I stretched out my arms and I said, Mr. Wilder, you were wrong about me. And from that day forward, I no longer sought to prove Mr. Wilder wrong. Now every day, I just seek to become just 1% better, because I know that that's how I'm going to leave my mark. When we think about the ability to lay down the weight from allowing other people to control where we can go and what we can do, it is freeing and liberating. You see, to be a game changer, you don't have to be super intelligent. You don't have to have super strength. You don't have to have connections in all the right places. You don't even have to be a superhero or a goofy sidekick for that matter. You just have to make a commitment to taking small steps and intentionally working to improve by 1% every day. You see, when my granddaughter Michaela was born, she was 3 years old when I finally made this decision, but when she was born, something happened to me. And when she was 3 years old, I decided that I would create a company for each of my grandchildren. And so we created, called Kayla, after Michaela, and it's a web development and consulting firm. And when Michaela graduates from college, that will be our gift to her. You see, game changers, they have audacious vision about what they want their world to become. And when we give that gift to Michaela, guess what? That's an audacious vision. But I'm doing it one day at a time, one client at a time, and 1% at a time. Anyone can be a game changer. Anyone. From a business leader to a business owner. From a caregiver to an educator. From someone in the boardroom to someone in the stockroom, and maybe even you, right? You can be a game changer by leveraging the power of 1%. So decide how good you really want to be, and then become it 1% at a time. What if you could apply the power of 1% to your life? What could happen? And what would it look like if all of the effort you spend with your 1% aggregated could create something simply amazing? Thank you.
Welcome also from my side. My name is Aleadra Deubner. I'm a transformational coach from Vienna, Austria, and I'm thrilled to be here with you. And I thought, what can I share to empower and inspire you in these challenging times? And what came up is one of my core beliefs that we can all create a life we truly love. So I invite you to actually create a life you truly love. And I know this might sound a little bit weird or difficult in these challenging times, but I so believe it's possible. So I invite you to actually start looking at what's working already in your life and what isn't. And please don't tell me that you can't change and that that's not possible for you out of whatever reasons, because we still have control over so many things. So if you feel overwhelmed and if you feel, fearful or whatever it is, if there are any obstacles that come to your mind immediately, I invite you to actually, the first thing that always works for me is I take a deep breath. I really stop doing whatever I'm doing, and then I just breathe and take 2 or 3 really deep breaths and just let go of any stress. And this is my anchor, and I hope it works for you as well. So that's the first thing. Anchor yourself in your breath. It's always available for you, which is so powerful, right? And it usually, it gets out of this fearful hunting kind of extreme rhythm, but you start to balance yourself a little bit more and to ground yourself when you focus on your breath. And once you focus on your breath, the next step that I invite you to do is actually that you start to listen to your thoughts and listen to what you're actually telling yourself. And very often we are our worst enemy. I can speak for myself. For years I've been telling myself the weirdest stories, that something can't work, or that I'm not good enough at something or whatever. And all of these are limiting beliefs, and these beliefs don't come from us, right? They come from whatever, parents, society, something that happened in childhood, whatever it is, yeah? And it doesn't really matter at this point. It's just when you believe, when you realize what you're thinking, you actually can take over the control again, because now it's in your conscious mind, right? And you can ask yourself the following 2 questions. Is this actually true, what I'm telling myself? And is it serving me? And if it's true and it's not serving you, let go. And if it's not true and also not serving you, let go, yeah? That sounds easy, it needs some practice, but it's so powerful, because we need to get control over our lives again, and it starts with getting control over our breath and control over our thoughts. And then I invite you to exchange the limiting thoughts with some positive ones. So instead of, I can't do this, or it's too hard, or now is not the right time, there will never be a better time than now. So tell yourself something, find a mantra, something like, I am good enough. I'm as good as I need to be, yeah? I'm fine the way I am, I'm perfect, whatever works for you. And say this to yourself on a regular basis. The more you tell yourself positive affirmations and positive thoughts and let them sink in, the more, you will also learn to believe them, and the more empowered you will feel. So now that we have the breathing and the thoughts, the next thing is actually that I invite you to do is to look at the areas of your life that are working well and those that aren't working well. So I tend to divide my life usually at least in 4 areas. So the first one being career, business, if you're younger, studies maybe, yeah, this area. Then the next one is health. So how is my health, body, mind, and soul? The third one is the heart. So it's family and friends. It can be pets. Yeah, whatever comes up in your heart area, relationships, of course. And then the last one is the fun part. Yeah, what do you do for fun? And take a look at, it's your spare time and so on, your hobbies, what do you really like to do? And I invite you to take a look at all these 4 areas and see where is something missing. Because the thing is, we probably only live once, and I invite you to make the most out of it, even in these challenging times. I so believe it's possible for each and every one of us. But we need to get unstuck to be able to do this. We need to regain control over our lives again. And there are parts we can control. So if you take a look at these 4 areas, what is the first one that comes to your mind that needs, immediate help? Yeah. And then work on it. And it can be a small step. Yeah. It can be for, let's say you feel alone. It can be that you call a friend. Reach out. Don't be afraid of, asking for support. Only the brave ones actually do this. And then also make sure that you take good care of yourself in general. So self-care is really important, yeah? Together with the thoughts, right? The positive thoughts that we're telling ourselves, also to make sure that you get enough sleep, yeah? All this health part, you get enough sleep, you get enough water into you, you go out for a walk. It's the small things if you're allowed to go out for a walk, yeah? Do some yoga, some exercise, any kind of movement usually also unlimits our brain. Yeah, there's some movement going on in our brain when we start to move in our body. And then, I also invite you not to hide behind your fears. So Brené Brown once said, and I really love this, that you actually, because I also thought always, if you're courageous, you aren't afraid. But that's so not true. It's actually the opposite, right? You can only be courageous if you do something despite fear. Let it sink in, yeah? So let's be courageous. Take a look at your fears. We all have fears, so you're not alone if you're afraid of something. And then, again, ask yourself, is this true or isn't it true? And most of the time it's not true. And then think about, do I really want to do this? So let's say you want to, for instance, improve your life, change something in your career, in your business, whatever it is, take a next step so that you really live your true self, yeah, that you become more the person you want to be, yeah, and it's all about, making the most out of our lives, right? And then, you might, an idea might come up, and then usually a big part of us says, "Ooh, this is too difficult now, or too dangerous, or too risky, because what if I fail? But what if you win? What if you manage to do this?" So instead of staying in this world where we are afraid of losing, why not open up to all the possibilities that could happen when we win and when we actually make it? Maybe not as the first try, because it's about failing forward, right? Let's get away from this, "Ooh, I can't fail." And instead, try to fail as often as you can. Don't ruin any business or so, but you know what I mean? But it's the small things, right? So don't be afraid of failing, but see it as a learning curve, yeah? And then take this step and really let fear guide you. So when you feel like, "Oh, I should do this, but wow, I'm really afraid of this," yeah? And fear comes up, look fear in the eye and ask it, "Why are you here?" That might sound weird, but very often fear is just here because it's trying to hold you back in your comfort zone. And that's not where we grow. If we want to grow, we need to get out of the comfort zone. And the only way we can get out of the comfort zone is when we actually do something and expand our comfort zone, when we take a step outside. Because, here is where magic happens. Not down here, out there, yeah, where fear is, because we are not used to getting out of our comfort zone. But I invite you to get out of your comfort zone on a daily basis. It can be the small stuff. It can be reaching out to somebody you've always been interested in but never dared to speak to. Reach out to this person. It can be, I don't know, standing up in front of people and starting a speech, even though you're afraid of speaking in front of people. Yeah, just dare. Yeah, don't do crazy stuff. Yeah, that might hurt you or others. but get out of your comfort zone and see how actually exciting and awesome and relieving it is when you did something despite your fear. That's real courage. And that's what we need. And that's what we really need, first of all, in the world. Yeah, let not fear hold us back, but actually let's expand and make the most out of our lives. With COVID-19, without COVID-19, it's here right now. Yeah, we have to accept this. We can't ignore it, but we can still make so much out of our lives. That's, my wish for you, that you dare to get out of your comfort zone and reach for the stars, one step at a time. And if you fail, no problem. Be proud of yourself that you tried, and then try again. Think it over. What hasn't worked? What can I do differently? And then go for it again. Because, my dear, you're stronger than you think you are. And the thing is, the more you're getting out of your comfort zone, the more comfortable you will feel. It will become your new comfort zone, this expanded area. And you will become limitless in the long run. And isn't this awesome when there's suddenly no fears holding you back and you're getting closer and closer to your true you and living and creating the life you've always dreamt of? Because it is possible. And imagine what a success story you will write when you say, I did this despite these crazy times. Despite all of this, yeah, I managed. That's the most awesome, success story. And I would love to hear all about this. And I really believe it's possible for each and every one of you. As long as we don't let fear get in the way of our dreams, if we take a look at what we need, which areas we need to improve, and then take one step at a time. Focus on your breathing, make sure that your brain only has thoughts that support you, that empower you, and then take one step at a time and surround yourself with people who are, cheerleaders, who support you in whatever you're doing. That's it for me for now. I hope this was helpful. I wish you all the best. Stay healthy, sane, and safe in these crazy times. Never forget to believe in yourself. I so believe in you, and I wish you all the best. Let's inspire the world. My name is Aleadra Deubner. You can come and visit me on my website, www.alexandradeubner.com. Deubner is spelled Deubner. All the best. I believe in you. To your true you. Bye-bye.